In today's episode of the podcast, we are celebrating Weirdo Wednesday. Woohoo! Why? Because this episode goes out on a Wednesday, and the alliteration, it ties in with our theme for the week as well. So I promised you, if you follow along day by day, you will know that yesterday I promised you that today we're going to have some really practical suggestions. This episode is especially for people who find it difficult or who find it more difficult to let their little weirdo out to play. So I want to give you some things to think about and some practical stuff that you can start to try. Before I do that, I just want to remind you as well, if you've been following along with the podcast and you are somebody who would like some practical one-on-one support with doing battle with the head junk so you can take action, this is particularly entrepreneurs. Most people listening to this are business owners because the clue is in the name. It's the Faith and Business podcast. But I'm trying to cover all bases here in case you're not a business owner. But if you would like some support with that, or to find out more what that might look like, go to faithandbusinessplayground.com/talk. And you can get yourself signed up and in my calendar. So with that announcement said and out of the way, I have a great big note on my notepad here reminding me to remind you about that. I try and do it every episode, but I don't always succeed. So without further ado, Weirdo Wednesday. How can you let your little weirdo out to play? And there's lots of practical things that you can do. If you listen to Monday's episode, you will have heard me tell you about the t-shirt that my friend was wearing that sparked the whole language around letting your weirdo out to play. And so that for her is one way of, it's a statement. I've got my vegan hoodie that I wear quite often that says, vegans, we're not crazy, we're just from the future. It's a tiny thing. It shows that I have a sense of humor. It's me being me. If you go onto my website, some of my buttons some of my buttons on the website, they don't say sign up or join now or yes please. They say Geronimo. I'm not going to tell you why, because some people listening to this will know the reason why. If you don't know why, then stick Geronimo into Google and see what comes up. Or, little extra hint for you, go and look at the favicon on my website. That would be your big clue. It's just a little thing that I can do to just sort of let my freak flag fly just a little bit. Another example, when I just stumbled over my words, and you'll notice if you listen to lots of these episodes, I don't edit the podcast. The only time I edit is if one of the animals in my house, the furry kind, DOG, I'm not actually going to say the word, otherwise they're going to come running in. But sometimes they will bark. If there's somebody walks past or there's a letter through the letterbox, they get a bit noisy. And noise of dogs barking, I said it. We're okay, it's fine. They didn't hear me. But then, unlike most people's mutts, I always had this image that if we had dogs, that they would be sort of sitting at my feet. Because that's what you see, isn't it, on Instagram and Facebook? You see people with their pets sort of keeping them company. But no, my two just sleep on the sofa in the other room together. And I don't see them unless I get up and feed them or whatever. But one of the reasons why I don't heavily edit the podcast is it's my little way of demonstrating how I can just be myself. And so I did this very consciously right back last summer when I started the podcast. Some of you will know I did a crazy thing. I thought, I'm going to do it. It's the summer holidays. I'm going to start a podcast, even though I've got the children home from school and peace and quiet is needed for podcasts. That sounds like a great idea. Well, I don't know. It's up to you to decide whether you think it was a great idea. 130 something episodes later, we're still going strong. So there is that. But I did it on purpose. I made a really conscious decision right back then that I wasn't going to heavily edit. So we've had music from time to time. So if I went through a little spell, until relatively recently, the podcast had a little sort of formal introduction and a bit of jingly music. Even that's gone now. Now it's just I rock up with my microphone plugged in. I share whatever the stuff is that's been laid on my mind to share with you, and then we hit stop, and then job done. I chop off the white noise at the end and the beginning, and then it goes out into the world on purpose. It's one of my ways that I can just show up and be myself in a bid to help demonstrate that to you. And so what I would encourage you to do is, if you are somebody who struggles to be fully self-expressed, as the proper phrasing for little weirdos goes, if you are somebody who finds it hard to be fully self-expressed, I would encourage you to sit with it and brainstorm it and just think about some ways that you can just start. Because until you just put yourself out there and start. And it can be little things. For example, the favicon on my website, most people don't notice it. But then very occasionally, some people do. And it causes them enormous delight. And it causes me to smile too. It's a little tiny thing that doesn't make a difference to most people. I'm guessing, I haven't done the research, but I would guess that, I don't know, 90%, 95% of the people that visit my website don't notice the favicon. Other than you listening, of course, you're going to go and notice the favicon now because I've told you about it. But until today, nobody really noticed it. And so it was a tiny little thing. If I was scared about letting that aspect of my personality out to play, it would be a really easy, safe way to do that. And so I would encourage you to brainstorm and think about, okay, what are the things that light me up? Because that's the other part of this as well, that sometimes we're not really sure what it means to let our little weirdo out to play. And so the starting point for that is, okay, what are those things that you geek out on? What are those things that you love talking about? What are those things that you get really excited about when you meet another person who shares that same interest? Those are the things that we're talking about. Start there. And so start talking about that a bit more, or finding ways where you can share it a little bit. And then just try it and see what happens. Because the reality is the sky is not going to fall down just because you tell the world that you, I don't know, love guinea pigs. There's nothing wrong with loving guinea pigs. We've got a very friendly guinea pig called Pepsi. So yeah, just saying. It was a random thought that popped in my head. But the internet is weird and wonderful and lovely and brilliant. And one of the joys of living in a world with the internet is that it becomes easier to find more people who share the same crazy quirkiness that we do. I give the example quite often of the guy, and I don't remember his name, but there's a guy who his business is to sharpen pencils. So he sells bespoke sharpened pencils, quite expensive bespoke sharpened pencils. Or you've got there's a huge collection of My Little Pony fans who are men, grown adults. There's, two random and unrelated examples, but whatever that thing is, or those things are that you get really excited about, start talking about them in some small way, or start expressing it in some small way. Because that really is the first step, is just to try it, do it, be it, don't hide it away. Now, I'm not suggesting that if you are working in corporate and, you're building your business on the side, that you suddenly show up in fluorescent pink trousers, but wear a pair of stripy socks. There are little ways that even if you're in a more formal situation where you can let those fun, quirky aspects of your personality out to play. But like I say, the big takeaway from all of this is just to try, just to start. Because unless you start, you won't know what that's going to look like. So that's your homework, if you like. I'm going to be back tomorrow with another... I'm not going to tell you what I'm back with tomorrow. It's more weirdo stuff. But if I tell you now, I'm going to jump ahead and this episode will be too long. But it's lovely. There you go. I'm allowed to say that because I know what's coming next. So I would encourage you to tune in tomorrow. But in the meantime, try this out for yourself. And if you want to let me know how you get on, do please send me a message. I would love to hear all about it. In the meantime, as ever, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I shall look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.